Okay, so welcome to our webinar. So on this first slide, you can see three pictures from the area of Muscadet. On the left is the cliff of the crus Château Thébault. In the middle, you can see at the front the slopes of the Chanteau Cru, and at the back the Loire River. And on the right are some hills that you can find on the Cru Goulen and Cru Monia-Saint-Fiacre. So let's say a small word about my estate. So we are independent growers. We are located at the village of Château Thébault in the Muscadet area in the Loire Valley. We produce organic farming, and we have a lineup of three different crus of Muscadet, including Château Thébault, our village, and also Clisson and Goulen. I work with especially my brother François, my sister Marie, and my two parents. So if you have any questions during the presentation, do not hesitate to write them in the chat so that we can answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's dive into the cru. So first of all, here is an overall view of the Loire Valley. So as you probably know, Muscadet is a western area in the Loire Valley. We are located very close to the Atlantic Ocean at the south of the city of Nantes. And on the map you can see the two rivers that give the name to our appellation. So you can see the Sèvre and the Maine, and also of course the Loire. Here is a closer view. So the area is subdivided in three sub-areas. So to the west you have an area called Muscadet Côte de Grandlieu, the closest area to the Atlantic Ocean. To the north you have Muscadet Coteaux de la Loire, with some slopes that sit all along the Loire River. And at the center is the oldest area called Muscadet Sèvre-Maine, and this area takes its name from the two rivers, Sèvre and Maine. And I also put a climate diagram because it's something very important about our terroir. Our climate is tempered by the very close Atlantic Ocean. So as you can see, the rainfalls are quite high. It's about 800 millimeters per year, which is very regularly, regular all along the year. So this avoid any heat stress and drought problem. And also about the temperature, thanks to the Loire, the rivers, and the Atlantic Ocean, the temperature are not very high, not very low. So this is important about our terroir. So if we go into the regulations of the Muscadet appellations, Muscadet area is organized in a pyramidal appellation system that you can see here. So the most basic level is called Muscadet AOP, which is produced in the largest area with a minimum aging and with yield that's not very high, but that's the highest of the pyramidal appellations. Then just above the regional level, you have the sub-regional level. So I've already talked about the three sub-regions. My estate is located in Muscadet Sèvre-Maine. So this is the classical level that you may know, because it's the most famous level. So to produce a Muscadet Sèvre-Maine, yield has to be below 55 hectoliters per hectare. The lease aging, we're going to talk about it further, is between 6 and 12 months, meaning that the wines has to be bottled after the 1st of March. And then at the top of the pyramid is the village level. That's the level we're going to talk about together. So this is the new level, which are the new cru AOP from Muscadet. Today you have 10 new appellations. Among those, 3 of them were recognized in 2011, Clisson, Gorges, Le Palais. 4 of them were recognized in 2019, Château-Thébault, Goulen, Monnières-Saint-Fiacre, and Mousillon-Thiers. And the 3 left, La Foissière, Valette, and Chantoceau, are still in process of recognition. About this level, it's quite new, but at the same time, the generation of my father, with its colleagues growers, they have been working a lot to make them recognized, and you can see the first cuvée of this cru produced back at the beginning of the 2000s. So, like for example, on our estate, we can do sometimes some vertical testing, testing back to 2002, the first vintage of our Château-Thébault, because it took. You may have heard about INAO, which is the organism that regulates all the appellation in France, and all the processes are always very long. So for this new cru, 3 major points is the yield, which is limited to 45 hectoliters per hectare, which is very low. Another point that we're going to go a little bit further after is about lees aging that has to be minimum 18 to 24 months, depending on the cru. For example, Clisson, Gorges, Château-Thébault has to be more than 2 years on the lees, 24 months. Goulen has to be more than 18 months. This is quite unusual and very long for a dry white wine, and this makes the typicity of our wines. And of course, maybe the main point is about terroir. So the cru are produced on very restricted area that are the best historical places in my region. So usually it's slopes around the rivers or small hills of vineyard. So let's say a small word about our variety. Our grape variety is called melon. It's originated from Burgundy, and it's the only place in the world, more or less, where you will find it. In total, in the world, it's about 10,000 hectares, so it's nothing comparable with Sauvignon or Chardonnay. It's a very rare grape variety. Its history starts in the 11th century, when the monks in Burgundy, they crossed 2 varieties, Gouais and Pinot Noir, to produce a family of grapes which is called the Noirien. And among this family, you have some very famous brother and sister, Chardonnay, Gamay, and also you find the melon. The melon, it takes its name from the very rounded shape of the leaf that you can see also on the picture. Something also very important is about lees aging. So here is a very short movie of 30 seconds to show you what kind of vats we use and also how we do batonnage. So a quick word about lees. So the lees, it's a sediment that's being formed at the end of the alcoholic fermentation when the yeast have finished to transform the sugar into alcohol. So the fermentation will take about 2 to 3 weeks, and at the end, when there's no more sugar in the juice, the yeast will die and settle at the bottom of the tank. And in our region of Muscadet, we keep the rough lees of the fermentation, and it helps to develop the profile of the wine. So the contact with the lees will bring some roundness to the wine, also some flavor complexity, and also we can enhance the effect of the lees by making some batonnage. So let's see together a very short video. So here you can see it's a subterranean tanks. Tanks are digged into the ground and are made with cement and covered with glass. So here you can see I'm doing a bâtonnage, and here that this turbidity that you have seen into the wine is the lees. And so we, depending on the cru, depending on our cuvée, we can practice some bâtonnage from once to every month to once to every 3 or 4 months, depending on the evolution of the wine. Of course, the most important is to test the wine very frequently to assess the evolution of the wine and to decide if we have to do more bâtonnage to make it bolder, or to stop the bâtonnage because the wine is going reductive. Maybe another very important point is about the terroir, of course. So this is a geological map of France, and you can see clearly the Loire that lays in the northwest of the France. So the Loire Valley is separated into 2 kinds of terroir. To the east, you have these yellow, green, and blue colors. That's the sedimentary basin of Paris, with all the limestone terroir that you can find in Chinon, in Saumur, in Anjou, for example. And at the western end of the Loire Valley sits the Muscadet region with the blue circle. And in this area, this pink area is made from an old mountain chain that was weathered during a geological time. And here you find a huge diversity of rocks that are mostly plutonic rocks that comes from magma. So these are especially granite and gabbro. And you can also find some metamorphic rocks. These metamorphic rocks are basically schist, gneiss. Also you can find some amphibolite or serpentinite. Actually, even if it's quite unknown, we have in Muscadet one of the most important diversity of rocks that you can find in the whole French wine regions. This is a treasure for us, and this allowed us to build with our colleagues growers this new system of village appellations. So this is maybe the most important map that you can try to remember. So these are the 10 cru. So most of the cru are located in the Sévrémen area. These are the 9 crus that sits in the middle of the slide. And to the north, you have this cru Chantosso, which is the village cru that's in the Coteaux de la Loire appellation. Then we're going to do a small focus on 4 of them. So I will say a small word about the others. So in between the 2 rivers, you have the cru Monnières-Saint-Fiacre, which lies on mostly gneiss terroir. It benefits from very nice exposure, north or south exposure, depending if the slopes are going onto the Sèvres or the Maine. Mouzy-Antillers is also a very interesting cru, which is made from a very unusual rock, which is called gabbro, that produced soil with some clay and very deep and mineral wines. Le Palais is also one of the first crus that was recognized in 2011. It's known for very rich wines, very interesting ones. Valette is located on a schist area, and Laifoisière is located on an orthogneiss area. Most of Laifoisière terroir have a south exposure, so it's quite rich wines, and you have a vein of orthogneiss that's following the Sèvres. So my estate will produce 3 of them: cru Goulaine, cru Château-Thébault, and cru Clisson. So let's go deeper in 4 cru. First of all, we are going to discover cru Clisson. So Clisson is a very charming village that sits to the south of the Sévrémen appellation. As you can see on the picture, it's built entirely with granite. Granite can look as a very solid rock, but in our area there are a lot of geological faults that goes across this granite and that weathered it into sand and clay. This allowed quite deep rooting of the vines with very regular water alimentation, and this allowed the grapes to ripe very, very well and to produce very powerful and warm wines on the palate, with usually very expressive notes on candied fruit, quince, very ripe citrus fruit. So it may be the most famous of the village appellations of Muscadet. So yeah, some producers. So our cuvée is on the left, family Hugo, and then I have put two other producers, very good producers, Domaine de l'Épinay in Clisson and Domaine des Cognettes also in Clisson. We are more or less about 25 producers in this area. The aging is usually 2 years on the lease. So also one major topic is that Muscadet is sometimes very famous for being paired with seafood and fishes. But when you deal with these new appellations, the wines are much more powerful, much more expressive, and with some of them you can pair some white meat, some spicy food, even some cheese. So especially for Clisson, with cheese, it works very well. So then let's say a word about Château Thébault. So Château Thébault, well, it's my village, so I'm very close to it. Here is a very dramatic view of the cliff of a rock called granodiorite. It's close to a granite, but with more iron and magnesium into it. It produces a mix of sand and clay also in the soil, with very thin soils that usually leads to much more mineral and straight wines. These wines, they need a longer aging, usually about 3 years, to express itself very well. And it has an exceptional length, usually flavor around mint, aniseed, and also some licorice. It's very complex, so a nice cru to discover. Here are 3 producers. So maybe you know Domaine de la Pépière in Médon-sur-Sèvre, also Domaine Jérémy Huchet in Château Thébault, that produce also very nice lineup of cru. Here is a view of our older plot of vineyard. So this vine is where we produce our cru. Château Thébault it's a 75 years old plot that was planted at the end of the Second World War. And it's produced organically, picked by hand, and we plow the soil using a horse to really respect the terroir and the old vines. And then on our estate, we also use natural yeast to really express the terroir, and we age it for 3 years with regular bâtonnage to really access the full complexity of the cru. So about Château Thébault, usually it's a cru that keeps much more acidity, with also good complexity and depth on the palate. It comes from the oceanic crust, and it's very rich in iron, in magnesium, and it leads to very clayey soils with a lot of clay. And this will bring into the wine a lot of tension, a lot of acidity, and a huge aging potential. You can find some flinty notes, some smoky reductive evolution, and you can keep it for 10-20 years. Very interesting wines. Here are three major producers in the Gorge area. Fred Laillé at Domaine Bréjon, also Damien Rinaud, and also Thierry Martin are some of the great producers, but there are about 15 producers on this area. And then we're going to finish with the last one, which is a cru Goulen. So you have this amazing view. At the front, you can see the slope, which is called Butte de la Roche. It's where we have our vines. All around this slope, you have a marshland, which is called the marshland of Goulen. And at the back is the city of Nantes, with the major building called Tour de Bretagne. So this cru is known for being very early because thanks to the south exposure, to the very sandy soils, the ripeness of the grapes is coming very, very early. It leads to very rich wines. So here is an example of terroir that you can find in one specific place of the cru called the Butte de la Roche. Into the soil you have a mix of serpentinite. Well, serpentinite is not the only rock that you will find in the Goulen cru. You also have some schist, some gneiss, and some veins of serpentinite and amphibolite.